Here we're going to continue with the spreadsheet that we started to create earlier, and I've added a few more student names and their corresponding exam results and grades. So what we have here is a simple little data sheet that displays the history exam final results as well as the student names and their scores and corresponding grades. Okay. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about some other features you have to further enhance the information that you've plugged into Excel so far. And we're going to talk about features like autofill. We're going to talk about some of the table formatting options you have to improve the display or the viewability of your data. And we're going to also talk about inserting columns to make way for additional data as our needs with the information that we have so far grow. All right, now, say that we're looking at the information here and we decide we're going to need to print this out periodically, and we're going to want to have the student records numbered. Now, in Excel, you have a row number for each row that you see down the left side of the screen. You also have a column letter for every column going across the top. Now, the only thing is, these row numbers and column letters do not print out. Now, there is a setting that we'll look at later on that shows you where you can find that setting. However, by default, the row numbers at the left side of the screen, the column letters at the top do not print out. So, I'm recommending we make a column and we include the row numbers there. So they will be part of our data sheet and they will in fact print out. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert a column to the left. Now there's an easy way of doing so. You simply go to the column that exists to the right of where you want to insert your new column, right-click right on that column letter, and then go down and select Insert. That's going to shift everything over to the right. It's going to insert a new column to the left of the column you had formerly selected. Okay, so what was formerly in column A now appears in column B. What was formerly in column B now exists in column C, and so on. All right, what I'm going to do here for the header of this column A is I'm just going to put in NO period for number, and I'm going to type in the number 1 for the first student record. I'm going to hit enter, type in number 2 for the second student record, and then I hit enter again. Now I can continue that process, but if I have hundreds and hundreds of student records over time, that's going to become quite tedious. Now here's a very quick way of how to do this using the autofill feature. Simply click on and select the first number, and keeping the left mouse button pushed in, drag down such that both row number 1 and number 2 are selected. Now we need 2 numbers in order for this to work, so you can demonstrate that there's an increment or an increase of 1 number. Notice that the 2 cells that are selected are both surrounded by that border. And also pay attention to the bottom right-hand corner of that border. You see it has a little square there? Now this is where we need to pay very close attention to the actual cursor, because under normal conditions the cursor is a little 3-dimensional plus. However, if I move that cursor over that bottom right-hand corner, it changes and it converts to a smaller plus. Now that's what we want. We want that small plus, and right when it's there at that position, don't move it, click your left mouse button, hold that left mouse button in, and roll down. You see a little pop-up appear that's showing you the corresponding number for every row that will then appear once we release the mouse button. Now they're all numbered. If I had gone too far, the numbering would have continued, but if I don't release my button, I could always backtrack and go just as far as I'd like. You can also just simply continue and number rows in advance. Now that was pretty easy because we have a very small data list here. But imagine if we had hundreds of records. We could have done that in one quick swoop, and they would all have been numbered. Okay, now I'm just going to go ahead and delete the extra row numbers that we don't currently need right now. There we see we now have a column for the number for each row. And that column is a little bit too wide for our needs, so we're going to narrow that. Now formerly we spoke about how you just simply move your cursor up in between the column letters, and you can then, when you get that double facing arrow, you can click and drag to narrow or widen your column. But here's a quicker, easier way. Simply move your cursor up over the line that divides the column letters. When you have that two-way pointing arrow, double click the left mouse button quickly. That will automatically resize the column to fit the widest entry. And keep in mind when you do it that way, Excel is looking all the way down every single row to see what the widest entry is contained within that column. And you have, if you remember, over 1,048,000 rows for it to look at. Now we have no data further down, so we're safe here, and that will make that